I hated my parents when I was younger cause my autistic brother got basically everything. It took a life-altering event to change it. I 30M, have an autistic younger brother, 28. He was diagnosed with autism at 3 years old. I didn't understand it at first, and I admit that I was somewhat mean to him. Partly cause he couldn't stop me, but also partly cause, isn't that what brothers do? Anyway, after he was diagnosed, all our lives changed. What used to be about finding common ground for everyone, turned into what's best for him. It didn't really hit until I was in the 3rd grade for a couple reasons. Mainly cause I started to understand the way my life would be for the next almost 15 years, also partly cause that's when I started getting bullied, but that's a different story for a different day. From the 3rd grade, we started doing everything together, like I didn't get hardly anything that was about me unless it was a birthday meal. When I fully understood what was going on, I began to resent my parents. I would often sneak out and stay at my friend's house, lie to his grandpa about it being okay with my parents if I could stay there, just so I could get away. When I wasn't at home, my life was great. I got to play video games, run around and basically be a kid, which is what I wanted to do all along. When I returned home, I got yelled at, which I deserved for sneaking out, but it still hurt. Needless to say, I knew nothing would change until I moved out. Well, fast forward to about 4 years ago, after all that had been going on since I was about 9, my future wife and I bought our house. Nothing special, but it's a start. Even after we had bought the house, I was expected to stay at home and help care for my brother, even though my fiancée at the time was at our house by herself. Because I didn't have a backbone, I caved. And boy do I regret it. After a while, I got fed up. I packed all my bags and left in the middle of the night without saying goodbye. I went to my house and slept in my house with my fiancée. The next morning, I woke up to over 20 missed calls and 30 to 40 text messages, and they all said the same thing: get your ass home now. I simply replied no. I'm 26 years old, and I am living with my fiancée. I told her what I told my parents, and she praised me for standing up for the right thing. From that point on, things got a lot better for me. We planned our wedding, got married, and yes, my parents and brother came. Then about a week after we got married, my mom told me I need to come out to the house, it's important. They lived about 35 to 40 minutes away, and I was tired, so I didn't want to drive that far. But she insisted I go, so I did. When I got there, they told me that they were getting a divorce. It hit me like a freight train. I didn't see it coming, but looking back now, I'm glad they did. They always fought. Usually about money. But then things changed. My dad stayed in the house, and my mom moved closer with her family, about 2 hours away from my house. After they fully divorced, things changed for the better. My relationship with both my mom and dad improved significantly. No more screaming matches, no more near physical altercations, and we started getting along. I'm telling this story to tell you that although divorce seems like a bad thing at the beginning, with time, it could actually be a good thing. Someone dumped 3 puppies at the park. Yesterday, I was getting ready to walk my dogs and at the last minute, decided to take them to the park instead. That was the first lucky thing. I park in a gravel lot at the far end of the park, and hardly anyone else ever parks there. It backs up to a wooded area along a river, an area that isn't actually part of the park, but adjacent. It was overcast and gloomy, but the temperature was nice, and no one else was at the park. My dogs and I walked our regular loop, and as we were headed back to the car, I noticed a truck in the gravel lot, backed up to the wooded area. It looked like he was dumping something, and something told me to take pictures of the truck. He likely saw us coming, and although it appeared he was going to turn right out of the lot, he would have driven right past us, so he turned left. I don't know if he saw me taking pictures. I tried to be sneaky about it, but I just had a feeling he was doing something bad. I live in the Appalachians in a rural, fairly poor county, and it's not at all unusual for people to dump dogs. A lot of times it's hound dogs, either too old to hunt anymore, or just not good at hunting. It's often backyard-bred puppies who've had no shots or vet care, and often they're too young to be away from their mother. I think my pit bull ended up a stray because he's so sweet and he wouldn't fight. All kinds of dogs get dumped, and most of them don't trust people enough to be caught, and the shelters are always full anyway. But people also dump trash everywhere, and I was hoping that's what the guy was doing, because everything else I could think of was worse. I was getting my dogs back into the car, and when I unclipped my girl's leash, the second lucky thing happened. Instead of jumping in the car, she took off towards the woods. I was trying to get my other dogs in the car before they took off with her, and when I looked up, I saw her sniffing another dog. Oh shit, I thought, another stray. She came back when I called her, and I started the car, turned on the AC, and headed over to see what was up with this dog. I've been involved in rescue for many years, and I can't just walk away. Well, it wasn't a dog after all. It was 3 puppies. They were scared for a minute, but when I talked sweetly to them, they came running and jumped all over me. They're young, probably not much more than 12 weeks, but they're big chonks, easily 25 pounds. Healthy, happy, sweet puppies are the best ones to find, because they are the most likely to get accepted at a shelter or rescue, because they get adopted the quickest. As adorable as they were, 15 minutes with them reminded me why I don't ever want to have a puppy again. Their teeth are like razors, and they kept chewing on my pants and biting my ponytail. Puppies are a pain in the ass. I called the non-emergency line and told them this guy had just dumped these puppies. While I was waiting for a cop to take them to the shelter, I saw the truck go by in the opposite direction, and the guy was looking hard in my direction. I think he was looking to see if I'd found the puppies. 2 cops arrived quickly, and they were so enamored with the puppies. They took them to the shelter, and I had already called to make sure they had room, and they did, probably just because these were adorable, healthy puppies. They assured me they would be safe there. The third lucky thing happened when I was going home. There's a lot of construction going on, and there was only one lane, so traffic was very backed up. As such, that truck was within view, and I was able to get pics that show the license plate. My other pictures were pretty far away, and you could only identify the make and model. I planned to send the pictures to the police. It's unlikely they would do anything about it, but not impossible. But then I started thinking about it. The guy dumped the puppies, who were old enough to be away from their mother, happy and healthy, in the middle of the day, next to a park where people often go. It's a shitty, lazy, cowardly thing to do. He made his problem someone else's problem. But he could have done much worse. He could have dumped the puppies months ago, or on the side of the highway at night. He could have just shot them, that's not uncommon here. Instead, he left them where they'd likely be found quickly. I'm not sure if I should send the pictures. Like I said, it's unlikely anything would be done, but what if they charged him with something? If he had this problem again in the future, would charges lead him to dumping the puppies in a more hidden place, or lead him to trying to find homes or a shelter for them? I really don't know. The puppies look like pit bull and cattle dog mixes, probably produced by his own dogs, accidentally or intentionally. If I could find the guy, I would ask him to spay and neuter his pets in exchange for me not sending the pictures to the cops, but that's unlikely and probably not a good idea. I'm still pondering what's the right thing to do. What would you do? What would you do if you were me? What would you do if you were a shitbag who dumped puppies and got in trouble for it? If you had unwanted puppies again, how would you handle it differently? Mummy, why are you ignoring me? Mummy, why are you not talking to me? Annie anxiously waits at the door for her mum and dad to come. She sits like this every day after school, and her parents always surprise her with a gift or a chocolate. Seemingly, on that sunny evening her parents were taking extra long. After many hours of waiting she finally hears the keys at the door. Annie stands up and puts on a big smile. Mummy, Daddy. She greets her parents and then looks at their hands, expecting something, but can't see anything. Her parents ignored her and walked upstairs, visually upset. Annie looked up at them going upstairs and followed them. Mummy, why are you not talking to me? Where were you? Daddy? Annie gave up and sat on the staircase, thinking, why aren't my parents answering me? Did I do something wrong? Annie then went to the kitchen and took out a box of chocolates, one she didn't like, the chocolates her parents were saving for a special occasion. She wanted to cheer them up in case something happened, or have them forgive her, in case she had done something wrong. Here you go, Mummy. Annie put the chocolates on the bed and stepped back, waiting for a response. They ignored her again. Mummy. Daddy. Answer me. Annie shouted. 2 days passed and her parents were still ignoring Annie. She tried everything to get her parents' attention, but nothing worked. Suddenly she heard screaming from another room. All because of you. Gone because of you. You drove recklessly, you piece of shit. Get the fuck out of my house. Annie's mom screamed. Annie quickly ran upstairs to see what was going on. I'm sorry, I feel sad as well, but you can't fucking blame me for this. Annie's father shouted while Annie's mom broke down in tears. Annie's father sat next to her and wrapped his arm around her. We will get through this together, Annie's father said softly. Annie's mother looked at her husband with an expressionless face, then looked over at the screw on the bedside table. Mummy, why are you crying? What happened? Annie said confusingly. Annie's mother got up and grabbed the screw and put it behind her back while she circled to the other side of the bed. Annie's father looked down and was about to get up. He suddenly felt a sharp pain in the back of his shoulder. You did this. You caused this. Fuck you. Annie's mom shouted while repeatedly stabbing Annie's father. Daddy, no. Mummy, please stop. Please. Annie shouted while trying to get her mum off her dad. Annie's mum eventually tired out and lay on the floor. Is everything all right in here? I heard screaming? John said, which was the gardener for the Simmons family. He walked upstairs and found Annie's mum with the bloody screw in her hand, and her husband lay motionless on the bed, soaked with blood. The police arrived and took Annie's mum and her father. Annie tried everything to stop them, but they just kept ignoring her. Annie sat in the living room couch with tears running down her face. She looked around the living room and noticed a photo of her she hadn't noticed before. In loving memory of Annie Simmons, a beautiful daughter and smart little girl, may she never be forgotten, it read underneath the photo in a gold plaque.